Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Virtual Admissions 101. My name is Michelle DeLuce. I'm Associate Director of Alumni Relations at Trinity College. Every year, the Trinity College Office of Alumni Relations partners with the Office of Admissions to invite members of the Trinity community with high school students to join us for an insider's look at the college admissions process. Although circumstances prevent us from welcoming you to Hartford this year, we're so thrilled that technology allows us to continue the tradition of offering this opportunity to Trinity alumni, parents, faculty, staff, friends of the college by moving it online. This afternoon, you'll have a chance to ask the Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid your questions about the admissions process and to put yourself in the shoes of a college admissions counselor by participating in an exercise where you evaluate applications yourself. To get things started, it's my pleasure to introduce our first session today. Trinity College Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid, Adrienne Odie, is here to speak a bit about the college admissions process and to answer some of your questions. Helping us facilitate the Q&A with Adrienne is current Trinity College senior Olivia Painshow. Olivia is studying public policy and law and Hispanic studies, is a student admissions associate, and has been involved in Alpha Chi Omega, the annual community event staff, the Entertainment Activities Council Barnyard, the mock trial team, and more. So without further ado, Adrienne and Olivia, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks so much, Michelle, and welcome everyone joining us from all over the world today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Excited to talk college admissions, especially in the years that we've been experiencing recently. And so I'll get started, one, by hoping Olivia got a little bit of sleep, hearing all of the activities that she does and everything she's involved in, which is a pretty typical Trinity experience, but wishing her good rest and restorative moments to all of you too. As we think about the college admissions process, I think it's important first and foremost to accept the inevitability that you will have college acceptances coming your way. Oftentimes I hear from students and families just beginning this process, and there's that question of, will I get in? And I'm here right out of the gate to share with you, yes, you will get in, especially if you take advantage of some of the resources we're providing today. Really pay attention to the case studies exercise and approaching this process, knowing confidently that you will have choices can just alleviate some of the pressure and the anxiety that applying to colleges causes. And that's not what we want to create as admissions officers. It is really our job to look for ways to say yes to you, to look for ways to invite you into our communities, to support and advocate for you in your next step. So if you approach us as partners and advocates in this journey that we're going on together, we're going to all do it with a little bit less stress and hopefully a lot more fun. So now that we know that we're getting in and that you have options, I think the next thing to think about is what, as students and families, are your non-negotiables? We've learned a lot, I hope, over the last year, especially things that you really enjoy, things that you never want to have to go through again. And so perhaps you're a student who knows you need additional support in the classroom. Maybe you have a learning difference, perhaps you have ADHD. That should be a thing that you put on your non-negotiable list. Perhaps you're a student athlete and playing a sport is really important to you at the varsity level in college. That should be on your non-negotiable list. Maybe you want to continue playing the oboe or performing on the stage. You definitely want to make sure those opportunities are available to you at the colleges that you're considering. So begin as a student to think about what are the interests you want to carry forward? What are the things you want to explore? Because there are literally thousands of options all over the world. And it's really hard to narrow some of those things down if you haven't taken a moment to really get to understand and learn about yourself. This is such a blessing in this process to be able to look inward and to think about what matters the most to you, and to know that out of the thousands of options, there will be dozens upon dozens that are going to check off all of those non-negotiables on your list? Are you a student who wants some anonymity in the classroom? You don't enjoy the back and forth with the teacher. You want to be able to take the material and study it on your own and then come back and listen to a lecture. Like, that should influence the type of school you attend. Families, parents, what financially is realistic and what do you need? This is a good time to start having those conversations with students too, because finances totally factor into this process as they should, and bringing them into the conversation earlier, and we can give you some tips on how to do that, just makes the process go a little bit more smoothly so we don't have surprises at the end of the admissions process. And so as you're thinking about the environments where you think you're going to be the most successful as a student, as a family, you may also factor in, how close do you want or need to be to home? Do you want to be in the same town or in the same state or in the same country? Do you definitely not want to be in the same town or in the same state or in the same country? Because this process is becoming more and more of a global process for students and families. So it is not unrealistic to think about schools abroad. Certainly hopeful that everyone who's here today is thinking a little bit about Trinity, but if Trinity doesn't have the things that are on your non-negotiable list, that should be your guide as you proceed forward. And now it's time to start adding names to a list. Typically, people start with lists and then try to make the colleges fit to what you want. And starting with knowing what you want informs a better college list and makes it way more likely that you are going to get a yes. If you're not sure where to start kind of curating those lists and putting in the things that are most important to you to have colleges generated, the College Board has a great tool that you can use. Niche.com is another really amazing place for you to put in factors that are important to you and to have college lists generated. If you're a high school student who uses the platform Naviance, that is a great place to search for colleges, and you can even see where students from your high school have gotten in and haven't gotten in, and some of the stats that they provided. So that can be a helpful guide as well. There's a tool called Score that is similar to Naviance. If you don't have Naviance in your high school, that does a lot of that same work. And as colleges and universities, we're trying to put information about ourselves on all of these different platforms so that when you type in, I want a small residential college in a city with great academics, a lot of school spirit, Trinity is going to come up, and you're going to see schools that are like Trinity, so you can test different things out before you even set foot on campus. One of the positives in the pandemic times, the schools have really improved upon our ability to do virtual programming. 15 months ago, we would have never thought about doing this program online, and we've been able to do it at a couple of different times a year to reach more students and families where they are. So as your lists start coming together, don't be shy, jump on a virtual tour. I spoke with a family who does college pizza night, and every Thursday evening they order pizza and they sit together as a family and attend a virtual information session and a tour from a new college. So there's ways to create new traditions and to infuse some family time in this experience as well. And I hope you all take advantage of that. So you're thinking about different lists, you've got a list put together. Now the application process is upon you, and how do you stand out? People think it's become harder to stand out in the pandemic times because some of the activities you may have done have totally shifted. Some of the ways your teachers are evaluating you may have changed. But the beauty of college admissions officers is we we can respond to the conditions that are happening, especially at a place like Trinity, where we were already spending a lot of time with each individual application, really trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the students who were sending those applications to us to be able to evaluate you within the context of your lived experience. So shifting in the pandemic really didn't change our review process a lot, because we're already making different assessments across different high schools and trying to evaluate what opportunities you're taking advantage of based off of what is available in your community. So as your communities continue to shift, and hopefully we move beyond the pandemic times when more and more things become available to you in person, know that if you have something available to you and your friend down the street doesn't, we're evaluating you each under the conditions of what's happening in your houses and in your schools. So your schools spend a lot of time sharing that information with us. You don't necessarily have to repeat all of it, especially since you only have 8 to 10 pages in your college application. So you want every single page to matter and to continue to build upon your story. This is an academic decision first and foremost. So please continue showing up. I've been so encouraged and inspired by the students whose applications I've read this year about the ways they've continued to engage with their teachers and their fellow classmates, the new things that have come out of collaborating and learning in an online space, and the opportunities that they've taken advantage of. So even if learning online isn't your favorite thing and that's what you have to be doing right now to continue staying safe, or you're going back and forth between in-person and online, or gosh, you would love to see your friends smile, but everybody's wearing masks, keep trying, keep going, because we really are making our decisions first and foremost on, are you preparing yourself for the academic experience we have to offer? Because what we would hate to have happen is you come here, you go to college, and you're spinning your wheels so hard and you're not able to keep up because you haven't been preparing in high school. That's why we ask you to take classes in math, in science, in English, in foreign language, and social studies throughout high school, so that when you step foot on our campuses, you can take advantage of classes in any department and explore interests and new interests as they arise. Most students who are applying to Trinity and the Trinities of the world have absolutely prepared themselves in the classroom. That's why you come to a place like this, to be with folks who are serious about their academics. And so all of the extra pieces start factoring in even more. The activities that you're doing, it's more important that you show us some commitment to something. Obviously, if activities went mute or offline completely, we're not going to expect you to create them out of nothing. But if there was a way to continue doing activities, even if that shifted, we hope that you stayed committed to a few things, because we want you to be committed to something in college, and we know that that persistence is a sign that you're going to be successful, even if you stop doing that activity and try a new activity when you get to college. A lot of times people try to fill up the Common App activities list, and it's really, really hard to juggle 12 activities and be a really great student and be a really awesome friend and a sibling and a child all at once. And so that is not our expectation. A few activities done well, whether it's a part-time job, a sport, playing an instrument, doing community service, a couple of those all at once, that's going to speak greater volumes and show us more than you trying to do 14 activities but not being really committed to any of them. Teacher recommendations, some schools are requiring them, others are not. Here at Trinity, we require only one. And so we really are looking for someone who can speak to us beyond the numbers of your transcript. We get your grades, and the types of classes that you're taking, and we can start to put together an academic story. But we really want to see the soul behind it. What's driving you in the classroom? So a teacher who you have a good relationship with is going to write the best recommendation. If you don't have a good relationship with a teacher yet, you still have plenty of time to develop those relationships. So please reach out to teachers whose classes you're really enjoying, because they're going to really be able to speak to who you are as a student in the classroom, and that's going to help us so much when we're making admissions decisions. Essays also important, and it really is your opportunity as a student to tell us something that we didn't get from any other component in the application. There's no way in 650 words or less that you're going to be able to tell us your life story. So know that the best essays are the essays that students want to write, not the essays that you think I want to read. Most students write the essay they think I want to read, and that is a missed opportunity because those essays often sound the same. But the best essays are the ones that really come from your heart, students that show us a little window into your life that we wouldn't get from anywhere else. My favorite essay that I read this year was written by a young woman, and it was a conversation that she was having with her younger sister. So nothing earth-shattering. She didn't create a new online tutoring program in the pandemic times. She didn't, have a major breakthrough in her science class. She didn't score any game-winning goals. It was really just a conversation that she was having with her sister about what they were planning to do that weekend. So in 600 words, I learned a lot about her relationship with her sister, a lot about the things that were exciting to her, a little bit about what she was nervous, what made her nervous and where she was concerned. And it was such a refreshing break from the essays where there's a goal and you're pursuing the goal and you're going to reach that goal and learn the value of hard work, which I hope you learn the value of hard work in high school, or you fail and you learn the importance of failure and overcoming obstacles to continue to persist to achieve your goals. Like, those are important experiences. But when you're looking at applications that are thousands of students who are generally pretty amazing people, and we have to draw really fuzzy lines when we say yes and no, a window into who you are so that I have a chance to see you flourishing on our campus and in our community is going to go a really long way. So don't feel like you have to have done something extraordinary to write an extraordinary essay. Just being yourself is distinctive. You're the only you that is there, and we want to see that, and that's going to come through really well if you pay attention. The last component of the application process I'll mention before we go into your great questions is standardized testing. Standardized testing gets a lot of press even in the normal times, and has gotten even more in the pandemic times as more and more colleges go test optional or stop reviewing test scores and considering them altogether. For us at Trinity, we have been test optional since 2015. So students, it really is your choice. And for schools that are test optional, we really do mean that. This isn't it isn't a trick or an optional that's really required. If you believe testing should be considered as a part of your application because you think it's a good reflection of the kind of student you'll be in college, by all means, prepare for the tests, take them, send us your scores. If you want to do something else, or you don't think testing is a good reflection of who you are as a student, then don't feel pressure, especially for juniors who are with us, who are applying next year. Most of the colleges who went test optional this year are continuing to be test optional next year. So you have a lot of options, a lot of schools all over the spectrum who will review your applications without test scores. So I share that to, again, alleviate some of the pressure and anxiety that comes with standardized testing in particular. If you do decide to take it, please prepare for it. There's tons of free resources available for you online. You wouldn't show up to lead the school play without having rehearsed. You shouldn't show up to an SAT or an ACT without having practiced. If you don't want to do it, there's thousands of schools who will review your applications without them. So this really is a component of the process where you have a lot of agency, and you should choose the path that is going to put your best foot forward. I'll pause there and see what questions we have, Olivia.
All right, thank you so much for that very detailed overview of the application process. Before we jump into the questions, I do just want to encourage the use of the Q&A function. If you have any questions, feel free to type those questions out and we will filter them throughout the session. Our first question is, what are the benefits of a smaller liberal arts school experience? What are the benefits of a larger university experience? And how should I consider the two during my search?
I love this question. So there are pros and cons to any type of educational experience. For a small liberal arts experience, the benefits come from being in classrooms where you are known and seen. Faculty with PhDs are often teaching those classrooms and are motivated to be teachers. That's the environment that we have here. So you can be confident as a student in your very first class that you will be with a professor who is excited about teaching you and has been working on teaching in addition to their research and scholarship. Flexibility of curriculum in a small liberal arts setting means that you get to study broadly and you can change your mind without having to add time to graduation day. There are certainly limits to that. We don't want you to be changing your mind all the way up to your senior year. But as far as majors and double majors, occasionally a triple major, those things are easier to execute in a smaller, more flexible curriculum. The cons are there aren't as many major choices. We have 41 majors at Trinity. At some of the larger universities, there are literally hundreds of majors where you can get really specific in a degree. There's also different clubs and activities. We have, over 100 here. At bigger places, there may be 200 or 300 different clubs and activities. But what comes with more opportunities is a little bit more anonymity, certainly larger classes. So there is no right or wrong answer in the world. It's really what environment is going to serve you the best and prepare you to meet your goals. Oftentimes you can make small colleges feel bigger, especially if they're in cities like we are, because you have so many opportunities that college students are pursuing in and around the campus, and ways to make bigger universities feel smaller. I think we're all trying to add a little bit more to our experience depending on the type of school. So that's where it's really important for you to decide what your non-negotiables are, because if it's I need to be an astrophysics major, then you might end up at a larger place where you can get that specific major versus a physics degree where you could pursue some studies and research in astrophysics at a smaller place.
And on that theme, one of the questions is asking about the biggest factors that people should keep in mind when choosing what colleges to apply to. Do you have a list or any advice on what those factors should be?
It's your list. It's your list of non-negotiables. Like, do they have the programs you're interested in pursuing? Do they have the resources that you need to be successful? Are they at the price point that is possible for you and your family? And I think a thoughtful search has all of those factors that come together, and you'll see in the Venn diagram intersection schools that should be, offering the programs that nurture your interests in the classroom, outside of the classroom, at the price point that is going to be affordable for your family.
And could you speak to the different types of scholarships that are available in terms of merit, need-based, and athletic, and which of these are offered at Trinity?
Yes, financial aid. If you think there's application variances in what admissions offices are doing, we take it on and put it on steroids in financial aid offices. So every school does things a little bit differently, and it's really important that you're communicating with admissions and aid offices at the schools that you ultimately want to apply to make sure you understand what's offered at their school. Broadly, there's different types of aid. There's need-based aid and merit-based aid. That's a good place to start when you're thinking about financial aid. Need-based aid can come in the form of grants, which you don't have to pay back, loans, student loans. Typically, need-based student loans are capped at $5,500 per year. These are loans coming from the federal government if you're a U.S. citizen, and then many institutions have a similar kind of loan program for international students that gets capped around the same amount each year as well, and work study. So this is working in jobs on campus. Some of them can be designated as work study jobs, some of them not. It really depends on the campus community. So we've got need-based aid. There's the grant component, which we want most of our financial aid packages, especially at Trinity, for need-based aid to be filled by grants. And then we call it self-help, and that's where the student loans and the work study can come into play. Then there's merit aid, and merit aid is awarded independent a lot of times from financial need. Some schools offer a lot of merit aid. Some schools don't offer merit aid at all. And some schools offer something in between. So it's important, especially as you're thinking about the finances of college, to understand if you're going to qualify for need-based aid and or if you need merit-based aid, because what we calculate as your financial need, you might not necessarily agree with that. Sometimes everybody's on the same page, and sometimes we're on different pages. So keep that in mind as well. With merit aid, it's awarded based off of a special skill or talent or achievement you have in high school. So a lot of it is academically driven, but there's merit aid for students in the performing arts. There's merit aid for students in music, and certainly athletic scholarships, which is what we hear about, I think, the most outside of colleges. Athletic scholarships, if schools are offering them, are often left to the discretion of coaches at the Division I and Division II and NAIA levels. For Division III, like we are at Trinity, we don't offer athletic scholarships, but that doesn't mean athletes can't get academically driven merit scholarships that we do have to offer. So we're getting a little bit nuanced here, but I think the take-home message is there are people at colleges and universities who want to find an affordable pathway for you to our colleges and universities. At Trinity, we offer need-based aid and merit-based aid for students because we really want to make this education possible for as many families who want to be here. So definitely be in touch with admissions and aid offices. We're happy to work with you earlier in the process on what realistically the cost of our educations will be for your family. If you're not ready for a conversation, every school has a net price calculator somewhere on their website. Some schools put it front and center. Other schools kind of bury it under a few clicks and links and pages. But if you search net price calculator and then the colleges that you're interested in knowing the price, if you're honest about the information you're putting in, you'll get a reasonable estimation on what you can expect your bill to be if your student is admitted.
And next we have a Trinity specific question. Thomas is asking thoughts on Hartford as a city.
I'm going to start this answer, and then Olivia, I would love to hear your thoughts on it, especially as a student who's been here in Hartford a little bit longer than I have. I think Hartford is a wonderful city. There are so many different sections and communities within Hartford. And as a person who grew up in the greater Atlanta area, I find Hartford to be really easy to navigate compared to Atlanta. I have walked from Trinity into downtown Hartford a number of times to grab food from El Serape, to get a coffee from Story and Soil. There's a new food hall that just opened up sometime, I think, right before the pandemic or right into the beginning of the pandemic, that has been a wonderful place to be, taking advantage of the museums. I love minor league sports. And so everything feels really, it's all so close and so easy to access. So I have just really enjoyed being in Hartford and have been so impressed with Trinity for remaining open in the pandemic, and seeing folks from Hartford coming through the campus. And it's been really pleasant from my perspective. Olivia, what would you add?
I definitely agree with all those statements. Personally, for me, Hartford was one of the biggest reasons that I chose Trinity. My minor of community action and a lot of the different research that I am taking part in for my senior thesis and through a few different unique academic opportunities through Trinity have really allowed me to work within Hartford and build relationships with different community members. I think it's really amazing to see how Trinity is connecting with Hartford and how Hartford is connecting with Trinity. I love the city. I worked for the Connecticut General Assembly. I've had friends work in the medical facilities. Trinity is in such an amazing location where there's so much around us in terms of culture and diversity, but also jobs and employment and just entertainment, really anything you can learn from. So I'm a big fan of Hartford. I only have good things to say. Our next question is, how do interviews influence the application process? What are admissions officers seeking to learn from these meetings?
Interviews are a two-way street. So they're both helpful to admissions officers and allowing us an opportunity to get to know you, because we know that you can't tell us everything you want to tell us in your application. So it's nice to put a face with a name and to hear more details and to add some depth to your application by having that interview. So we really are just looking to get to know you better. For students, I think, one, it's a great opportunity to practice talking about yourself. Many of us don't spend a lot of time talking about ourselves, and then you're sort of thrown into the college admissions process where you're expected to talk about yourself and to brag about yourself, and that can be a little bit jarring. So know that there is a friendly face on the other side of that conversation, rooting for it to go as well as you want it, as well as you are rooting it for it to go well. And it's a great opportunity for you to speak with someone who either attended or is currently attending the school or working at the school. So the best interviews are ones where both the interviewer and the interviewee are asking questions of one another so that you're getting a better sense of, is this a place that I want to be? And are these people who are going to help me be the person I want to be? And it's a way for us to answer the same questions about you. Are you a person who's going to really thrive in this community and take advantage of what the community has to offer? So prepare a couple of questions, maybe practice talking about yourself a little bit with a friend who can be honest and give you some feedback so that when you enter the interview, you feel more calm and relaxed and confident.
And how is GPA evaluated in the admissions process or when admissions are reviewing applications?
Oh, GPA. GPA is an important component, but we at Trinity and at many schools are not just looking at the GPA, because there could be a student who started off and was making C's, and then by 10th grade was making B's, and then into A's by 11th and 12th grade, and a student who started off with A's in 9th and 10th grade and then dropped down to C's by 12th grade, and they could have the same GPA, but really different high school experiences. So we are looking at the grades in your courses and how challenging those courses are compared to what's offered at your school, and how those grades and courses change over time. So ideally, especially at Trinity, students kind of start off pretty strong, add more challenging classes if they're available, and continue doing really well. If you got off to a bit of a bumpy start, but are really hitting your stride in 11th and 12th grade and continue to take more challenging courses, we also really love to see that. It's when we start to see grades declining in 11th and 12th grade that we ask more questions. And especially for students applying this year, we saw quite a few students whose grades shifted a bit last spring. Maybe you find yourself in this case when you're learning how to learn online for the very first time. So that is something that we can understand. We all experienced a shift to something different last year. So we know you're human, and mistakes, especially if you learn from them and show us that you're getting back on track, are forgivable most of the time in this process. It's when you haven't learned something, or you're not, or you're trying to hide something, that we ask even more questions and you might not get a good answer. So GPAs within the context of your school. Some schools recalculate GPAs. We don't do that at Trinity. We just take the grades from what your school says and kind of compare them to what other students at your high school have. But if you have a bump, let us know about it and let us know what you learned from it, because we'll celebrate that growth right alongside you.
And how does Trinity's admissions office envision, or what does Trinity's admission office envision for the immediate future of the campus visit experiences at Trinity? And then thoughts on this in general for all colleges.
Yes, so we have been open to admitted students mostly since mid-March, which has been so refreshing to be able to see people in person on campus and to show them around. As we move into the summer, our hope is to open up more visit opportunities for sophomores and juniors in high school. Right now, our plan is to offer more tours and to continue with our online information sessions, just so that we can have more visit spots available for people to see campus. That is what we've heard from prospective students and families being kind of the most important thing. So that's what we're prioritizing in the short term. As conditions continue to improve, we'll certainly bring back the opportunity to have an on-campus info session and interview, but for at least through June, assuming conditions kind of remain where they are or better, we'll be offering, our plan is to offer more tours each day for prospective students. And I think more colleges, as we move into the summer and the weather all over the place continues to improve and we can have more outdoor options, will begin to open their doors to more students for visits. And hopefully as we move into the new semester, we'll be able to add more to those on-campus visit experiences.
Our next question is asking about how ROTC programs may impact the college search and whether Trinity has ROTC.
Yes, so if ROTC or any particular activity is important to you, you should definitely add that to that list of non-negotiables, and look at schools that have different programs. For us at Trinity, we have sort of a loose relationship with UConn, so it's not really a bright part of the Trinity experience, which may mean that Trinity shouldn't be on your list, which would be sad for me, but ultimately we want you to be successful and to be able to pursue what you want to pursue. So making sure you're curating your list based off of types of schools that have ROTC programs would be really important.
And next we have a few different questions about athletics on campus. As an athlete interested in playing my sport in college, what steps should I take in my search regarding athletics?
Yeah, I love this question. I was a college athlete and it was a huge part of my experience in college for sure. So for student athletes, you'll want to make sure you're touching base with admissions offices and filling out athletic recruiting questionnaires. So we have our own forms and admissions for you to fill out to let us know you're interested. And then coaches, especially different sports, have forms where you can indicate an interest in playing that particular sport and share more information about your skills and preparation and ability to contribute to that team. I would also check on rosters and see who are the juniors and the seniors who are going to be graduating and what positions do they play, because rosters can't be unlimited. So if you're a point guard and there's 3 point guards in the first year class, that might not be, that spot may or may not be available for you. The coach may really be looking for a center for the basketball team instead of a point guard. And coaches will be able to tell you that more directly for sure than an admissions officer. At the end of the day, regardless of whether you're a D1 athlete, D2 athlete, D3 athlete, NAIA, or something else, you get admitted by an admission office. So it is good to say, hello, the guaranteed offer of admissions comes from admissions. With roster spots, athletic scholarships, especially D1, D2, NAIA, that is driven by the coach. So if an admissions officer is telling you you've got a spot on the team, you definitely want to check that out with a coach. And if a coach is telling you that you're admitted to a school, you definitely want to check that out with an admissions officer. I think really the only difference for athletes is knowing that you want to participate in a sport, and that's going to guide your list. If there's non-athletes here and know they want to participate in a particular activity, that should influence your college list just as well. And you should be reaching out to choir directors and music programs and theater departments to see what kind of opportunities are available to you if you're interested in those activities, just as athletes are reaching out to coaches for conversations around athletics.
And our last question is looking at Trinity specifically. What is the student athlete experience like at Trinity?
Sure. Student athletes, Olivia, you may be able to answer this question with your peers and things like that better than I can. And I'm happy to fill in from my seat.
Yeah, of course. So I will say that it depends on whether you're on the varsity team or if you're doing club or intramural. But I think it is a student athlete experience. You are a student first, you're a Trinity kid, and then you're also doing athletics and taking part in that. So, I mean, I'm personally not a student athlete, but I do know quite a few people who are. You have team practices, you have team workouts, you obviously have your games. Students who aren't playing in sports love to come see your games. We love to support other Trinity athletics, but you do have a very good balance of homework life, school life, social life, but then also athletics on campus.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is many of our athletes come to Trinity having played their sport sort of year round between school sports and club sports and things like that. Excuse me. And the NESCAC has pretty strict rules and guidelines so that you really can be a student athlete and you're very focused within the season, and there's a lot of communication between coaches and faculty members to make sure you're successful on the field, in the pool, on the court, as you are in the classroom. And then outside of season, you really get to experience a different way of living. You'll have some captains-led workouts and things like that, but the intensity of the athletic experience really gets dialed back outside of season in ways that many of our student athletes haven't experienced for quite some time because they're used to playing more consistently throughout the year. So I think it's a great way to get to be a little bit of everything. You get to have your time within the season and then time outside of season, and that brings a little bit more balance to the whole experience. Looks like we are wrapping up this session here. Michelle has put some great information in the chat about where you are going next to put on admissions officer hats. So definitely make sure you're copying that link before we end this meeting. And if you run into any technical glitches, Michelle has also put her email in the chat. She can help you get to the right place. But it's been really lovely getting to interact with y'all today. I look forward to when we can meet in person. And I think you'll learn a lot from the next exercise, getting to be an admission officer for an hour or so.